Over 60. Discover 4 shocking carbs to avoid and 4 incredible foods to boost your health now. Clara sat at her kitchen table, the late afternoon sun slicing through the window, illuminating the dust motes drifting lazily in the air. Her palms rested heavily on the worn oak surface, thoughts racing like a wild horse in her mind. Each one carried the weight of her family's expectations, the love she poured into her meals, the comfort of creamy casseroles that warmed her children's hearts. Yet beneath the nostalgia, a gnawing sense of dread twisted her stomach. The more she indulged in those family recipes, the more fatigue and discomfort gripped her. "Why would I abandon what I've built?" she whispered to herself, tracing the edges of the recipe cards with trembling fingers. The notion of health weighed heavily against the love she felt for the meals that had stitched her family together through the years. But that morning, Marjorie had revealed the list: vibrant, nutritious foods, ready to replace her family's cherished carbs. "Change is necessary, Clara," her friend urged, though Clara's heart felt like lead, dragging her into shadows she had never dared to explore. At family dinners, the first whiff of roasted meat or buttery potatoes stoked a painful tug-of-war in Clara's chest. Jake, her son, took a sizable helping of meatloaf and fixed her with a narrow-eyed glance. "What's this new quinoa business?" he questioned, his voice thick with disbelief. Clara's throat constricted, her cheeks warmed under his scrutiny. This meal, a quinoa lentil dish, felt like treason against their traditions, yet here she was, caught between the warm embrace of love and the choking grip of fear. Clara could almost hear Marjorie's voice echoing in her head, urging her to take the plunge into the unknown. "You're reclaiming your health, Clara." But how could she redefine decades of culinary love and tradition? As Jake dug into his beloved mashed potatoes, a lump formed in her throat. This fleeting joy felt bittersweet, and Clara grappled with the clamorous voices inside: conformity or change, comfort or wellness. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Clara's heart raced as she navigated through memories, the heaviness of her family's traditions pressing against her. But then, a glimmer, a secret recipe book penned by her late mother. It had the potential to blend her ailing health with the cherished memories she feared losing.
What if this could bridge the chasm her family was creating? The thought sent a flutter through her stomach, followed quickly by doubt. The weight of both past and future swirled around her like a storm. This coming Sunday, could she present the book as a symbol of a new beginning, or would it be seen as a betrayal of who they were? A wave of dread washed over her, the possibility of rejection lingering like a bitter aftertaste. Just as she reached for the dusty cover, her gaze fell on Lucy, her granddaughter, whose wide eyes mirrored both confusion and longing for family tradition. Clara's hands trembled. Change meant facing the fear of not belonging, of breaking what had been woven over generations. Would she risk everything for health? Clara stood at the precipice, torn. Could she step into the light of potential transformation, or would she let the familial ties pull her back into the comforting darkness? The morning sun crept through Clara's kitchen window, its warm rays drawing her out of the tangled web of her thoughts. Sunday was finally here, the day she had circled on her calendar several times, a marker of uncertainty and hope. She glanced at the recipe book, its nuisance lingering in the air, clutched tightly in her hands. Hidden within those pages lay the potential to transform not just her meals but the fabric of her family's identity. Yet a deep breath quivered within her, battling the impulse to let fear overshadow the small spark of determination igniting inside. Clara folded herself onto the worn chair, the same one that had borne witness to countless dinners and shared laughter. Today it felt different. Instead of preparing a traditional feast, she found herself combing through her mother's notes, sifting through faded ink and curls of her mother's handwriting. It was not only a cookbook, it was an archive of memories, adventures shared in the kitchen, the stories behind each ingredient, the laughter that filled the room whenever a recipe turned out just right. But could she share those stories while introducing new paths? Her mind replayed the burn of Jake's expression the last time quinoa had made its unwelcome appearance. Would a legacy of health be worth the potential loss of connection with her family? Clara's stomach twisted again, but this time she caught a different glimpse of her granddaughter. Lucy's enthusiasm for the unexpected could be what she needed to forge ahead. The plan was beginning to solidify in her mind as she zigzagged through her mother's notes. Clara would embrace of whole grains, the vibrant vegetables, and the bounty of proteins with which Marjorie had equipped her. Perhaps unexpected flavor profiles could bridge the gap between past and future meals. Clara began to sketch out a menu, each dish a blend of nostalgic elements and vivacious ingredients. But as she scratched out ideas, a voice in her head cautioned her. Will they reject this new direction? Is it too disruptive? Seeing Lucy bounding into the kitchen, a bright-eyed fireball of energy, snapped Clara back from her spiraling thoughts. The girl's curiosity was palpable as she wandered over, eyeing the recipe book with intrigue. "Nana, what's that?" The innocence in her voice ignited something in Clara, a glimmer of inspiration. "Just a little something I'm working on," Clara replied, a smile creeping onto her lips instinctively. The excitement buzzed between them. Clara realized this was more than food. It was a chance to pass down a legacy of health, one that could secure not only her well-being, but that of Lucy as well. "Want to help me make something?" Clara asked, her voice steadying, as she drew up a quick, vibrant idea in her mind. Lucy's face lit up, and the two of them began to work through the ingredients together. The kitchen transformed from a battleground of tradition to a playful laboratory of culinary possibilities. As they chopped, sautéed, and tasted, Clara felt herself easing into the joy of creation, merging the past with a redefined vision. Clara could feel a resolve settling in her bones. She was not abandoning her family. Instead, she was inviting them to embark on a collective journey towards health. A wave of conviction surged through her, fending off the shadow of doubt. Yet, as they dished out their colorful creation, Clara paused. The moment of truth loomed closer. How would her family react? Could they embrace this new beginning? Holding her breath, she prepared to present the dish. She was no longer just a vessel of tradition, but a confident architect of change, ready to challenge the ties that had once bound her. As Clara turned to call her family to dinner, adrenaline coursed through her veins. She stood at the brink of something profound, uncertain yet invigorated. The truth lingered in the air, a tantalizing beckoning. Would they see the love wrapped in new flavors, or would she face rejection? The moment had arrived, and with it the tension tightened, leaving her poised at the edge of a new chapter, one that could redefine not just recipes, but their very relationships. Clara's heart thudded audibly as she gathered her courage. Her voice trembled slightly as she called out to the family, but it was a call of invitation, not announcement. It felt as though she was inviting them into a world of fresh possibilities, one which might just reconcile the old with the new. As they gathered around the table, Clara observed their expressions, curiosity mixed with skepticism. Jake sat with his arms crossed, the very embodiment of caution. Clara braced herself, knowing well the friction between her visions for healthier meals and the comforts of their culinary traditions. "Tonight we're trying something a bit different," Clara began, her voice taking on a steady tone that surprised even her. "I've combined some of your favorites with healthier ingredients." She served the vibrant dish, a colorful quinoa salad laden with roasted vegetables and a zesty dressing that sent her senses soaring. The aroma wafted invitingly, a fragrant promise that danced above the clinking silverware, but she could still feel the weight of the atmosphere, laden with uncertainty. Lucy dug in first, her sparkly eyes shimmering with anticipation, a light that Clara clung to as if it were a lifebuoy in a stormy sea. The little girl's delighted chatter broke through the initial quietness, and Clara caught snippets of loosened commentary. "This is yummy! Look at all the colors!" Yet, even as Lucy delighted in the meal, Jake remained unyielding. "I don't know, Clara. Quinoa again? Last time was not what I call a success," he said, the trepidation etched across his brow like a banner of dissent. The familiar rush of tension crept into Clara's stomach, clamoring to bring her old insecurities bubbling to the surface. "Just try it, Jake," Clara urged, words tumbling out as fast as her thoughts. "I promise it's not just quinoa. I've seasoned it with flavors we love. It's an evolution, not a betrayal of our meals." Uncertainty lingered in the air as she watched her husband reluctantly take a bite, every moment stretching into an eternity. The silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket, and Clara's heart raced in response, each beat a fierce part of her internal battle. She held her breath, fighting the temptation to justify her choices as she saw his expression shift. His lips quirked slightly, surprised at the burst of flavor. Clara felt hope bloom at the edges of her resolve. But before she could relax, the tension still loomed within Jake, threading their interplay with chains of his past expectations. "I guess it's not bad," Jake muttered, chewing thoughtfully. His indifference teetered between tolerance and willingness, as Clara felt a flicker of triumph mixed with apprehension. Could this be the start of acceptance, or merely a half-hearted concession? Encouraged by her husband's slightly softened stance, Clara turned her focus onto the others at the table. Each family member tasted the dish, their reactions a careful blend of skepticism and intrigue. Jake finally set down his fork and smiled weakly. Clara's heart fluttered. Was it encouragement? "Clara, it's different," he consented, "but it's got its own charm. Maybe we could adapt some of our favorites into something healthier? She marveled at the thought, and a tide of warmth washed over her. Change was slow, but here it was, a small crack in their traditional facade, where the new could share space with the familiar. But as the meal continued, Clara's joy was tinged with uncertainty. She could sense the ceiling still hovering over her ambitions. What other changes could challenge the very nature of their family meals? Could the fear of resistance ever truly dissipate? As Clara cleared the table, satisfied yet apprehensive, something clicked inside her.
The evening had stirred her purpose, revealing an uncharted path ahead. Yet, while dinner had gone better than anticipated, lingering questions gnawed at her resolve. Would her next steps bolster their acceptance, or would the rift deepen? And as she stared out at the remnants of the meal, she couldn't shake the feeling before she faced the ultimate fallout. Clara awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. The conversation from the previous night lingered in her mind, a delicate dance between hope and hesitation that electrified her. She was determined to push boundaries further, not just in the kitchen, but in life. This was not merely about culinary adaptations, it was a personal evolution, a reclaiming of her identity amid familial expectations. As she prepared breakfast, Clara's actions took on a deliberate quality. Eggs were in front of her, but today they would be served on a bed of sautéed spinach and tomatoes, rather than the usual hash browns. She fought against the small voice that warned her of resistance. Why should change be met with reluctance? As she sliced vegetables, her resolve deepened. This was about influence, about sharing her vision without alienating her family. "Good morning." Her cheeriness came forth as Lucy entered the kitchen, her sleepy eyes brightening at the sight of the colorful breakfast. Yet, when Clara placed the plate in front of her, she noticed Lucy's expression falter. "No toast? Today we're trying something new," Clara replied. The thrill of creativity stirred within her, yet her stomach twisted at the hint of disappointment from her daughter. "It's an omelet, with a twist." Lucy hesitated, her fork hovering above the plate, and Clara felt her heartbeat quicken. She wanted to encourage her daughter's adventurous spirit, yet she also wanted to protect it from the influence of Jake's more traditional tastes. She couldn't allow the setbacks of the past to cloud this new chapter. "Just give it a try, Lucy, like I did with the salad last night." Encouragement wrapped Clara's words, a soft urge toward acceptance. The little girl took a tentative bite, and for a moment Clara held her breath. "That's really good," Lucy exclaimed, her eyes now wide with delight. The joy of maternal victory surged through Clara, and she savored the moment, allowing the fear of failure to dissolve. Jake wandered into the kitchen shortly after, grumbling about his lack of coffee. When he saw the breakfast layout, his brow furrowed ever so slightly. Clara could sense the looming storm cloud of skepticism in the air. "Did you forget about plain scrambled eggs?" "Nope, just trying to elevate our breakfast game," Clara said, striving to keep her tone light, but the tension was palpable. The next few minutes felt like a minefield as Clara watched him navigate the unfamiliar dish. "It's not my favorite," he finally declared, "but it's okay." Though it was a tepid endorsement, it wasn't outright rejection. Clara felt both deflated and emboldened by her husband's half-hearted approval. Navigating this unfamiliar terrain demanded more than culinary skills. It required her to wield emotional intelligence. She needed to discern when to push and when to step back. Her internal monologue wrestled with her motivation. Could she really transform their eating habits? Determined to move from reactionary to proactive in her approach, she began sketching out ideas for future meals. She envisioned colorful bowls brimming with healthful ingredients, meals that might foster conversations beyond mere sustenance. But questions still weighed heavily on her heart. What if they refused to embrace the changes? What if the divide between their traditional views and her aspirations deepened? Doubt lingered like a shadow, silently creeping in as the day wore on. Later, as Clara shuffled through old family recipes, searching for ways to integrate them into her healthier meals, a small note slipped from the pages, a reminder of her mother's optimism. "Change begins one step at a time," it read. In this simple truth, she found her anchor. She made a decision then. She would confront Jake, express her desires and fears directly. Instead of presenting things as a compromise, she wanted his insight and his openness to adventure. This was not merely about food. It was about their evolving family dynamic and the values she wanted to embed in their lives. As the afternoon light poured through the kitchen window, Clara prepared for her conversation with Jake. Emerging as an advocate for herself would require bravery. She shivered slightly as she thought of the potential fallout, but there was also excitement. They stood on the cusp of something transformative. Tomorrow, she decided, would be the day she posed the question that had lingered in her heart. What do you truly want our family meals to represent?
Would her husband rise to the occasion, or would he retreat into old habits? The uncertainty shimmered ahead like sun on a distant horizon. Clara could hardly concentrate on her day as anticipation both thrilled and terrified her. Every client interaction at the bakery felt mechanized, her mind continually drifting back to her impending conversation with Jake. How did one approach a pivotal moment like this? The possibility of altering the family dynamic made her pulse race. She spent the morning arranging pastries, yet her thoughts were consumed by the weight of words unspoken, brewing like a thick fog over her resolution. The afternoon slipped into evening, and as Clara set the table for dinner, she rehearsed the conversation in her head.
She could feel the vivid imagery of their family meals, a corny chicken casserole laden with creamy soup, robust and hearty spaghetti, the comfort food that visitors would admire, but that had somehow alienated who they were becoming. The sound of Jake's footsteps echoed from the living room, pulling her out of her spiraling thoughts. She felt it then, a faint tremor of dread mixing with the zeal of possibility. As she plated the broiled salmon, she envisioned their future, dinners filled with laughter, connection, and progress. She was not just yearning for dissenting tastes, she was advocating for their collective evolution. "Dinner is ready," she called, effortfully keeping her voice steady. When Jake entered, his expression assumed the familiar nonchalance, devoid of curiosity for the unusual meal. Clara fought against the tightening in her chest as he sat down, picking up his fork with automatic movement. The salmon, paired with lemon-drenched quinoa salad, looked resplendent, yet she saw his unease with unadorned eyes. "Interesting choice," he murmured, attempting to mask his skepticism. The way he picked at the quinoa made her pulse quicken, fear sharp and immediate. "Jake, I need to talk to you about something important," she began. She needed to push through the discomfort brewing beneath the surface of their ordinary routines. He sunk back into his chair, a frown skirting his lips. "Okay?" His voice dripped with an air of resignation, and Clara knew she had to seize this moment carefully. She could not retreat into uncertainty. "Do you remember the dinner we had at the Collins house last month?" she asked. She watched his brow furrow, and she pressed on. "They have a different approach to meals, less about tradition and more about exploration. I keep thinking about how we might create our moments of connection. It feels like it's slipping away." Jake's fork clinked against his plate, an involuntary reaction evoking a defensive stance. "And you think this quinoa is the answer?" The question dripped with skepticism. "Not just the food. It's about being open to what we can achieve together." Clara could feel her heartbeat echoing in her ears. The fight for space and understanding surged within her. "What do family meals mean to you? What do we want this to represent going forward?" The silence that enveloped them felt heavy, yet Clara could no longer shy away from potential conflict. This was about moving beyond mere sustenance. It was about carving out the family narrative they wished to embody. Wasn't he tired of the mundane? Shouldn't they aspire to something greater? Jake's expression softened, though a shadow of uncertainty lingered in his eyes. "I just want us to be comfortable," he replied, almost as if he were trying to protect their current lifestyle. But Clara saw the flicker of curiosity behind his instinctual reflexes. "I know. I felt that comfort too. But if we don't try new things, how will we grow together?"
The words poured forth, a mixture of nerves and determination driving them out. A ripe acknowledgement of shared visions or separate paths weighed heavily in the air. The room held its breath as Jake considered her words. "Maybe we can find a balance?" he ventured cautiously, a subtle shift within him that Clara saw as hope. As they worked through the layers of resistance that clouded his understanding of change, she felt her heart swell with the sophistication of what was at stake. What lay ahead was uncertain, but Clara realized this small revelation was worth fighting for. Laughter, experimentation, even discomfort would be necessary ingredients in transforming their shared life into something vibrant. "Let's try making a list of what meals we could explore together," she suggested, emboldened by an unlikely sense of partnership. As they began brainstorming options, starting with something simple, Clara felt a thrill of anticipation, grounded in an unshakable truth. This was merely the beginning. The tension once looming grew lighter, and as possibilities unfolded, she sensed a shift, one that would ripple into all corners of their lives. Tomorrow, she decided, they would cement this new alliance in the kitchen by collaborating on their first adventurous meal together. But Clara knew the real test awaited beyond the culinary realm, for they now stood at the threshold of a much deeper transformation. Could Jake really embrace this unfolding narrative, or would the weight of tradition push back once more? Clara woke up with a surge of nervous anticipation. Today marked a milestone that she hoped would tilt the axis of her family's ordinary existence.
The thought of collaborating with Jake in the kitchen filled her with promise, yet underlined it with a palpable tension. She had invested her heart in this new direction, but would he share her enthusiasm? As she sat at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee, Clara quickly reviewed the list they had made the night before. Each meal idea was crafted as a vessel for exploration: Thai curry, homemade sushi, a spicy taco night. Such a bold departure from their usual fare felt both exhilarating and daunting. She imagined how each dish would welcome new experiences and conversations, but the fear of potential pushback lingered like an unresolved note in a symphony. The morning unfurled, and Clara could hear the hum of the world waking up outside. She glanced at the clock, her heart racing against the time. Jake was due home soon. She laid out the ingredients for the plan they had agreed upon: homemade pizza, laden with an array of vibrant vegetables and unorthodox toppings. Her hands moved with purpose, implementing the ideas that blossomed from their conversation. Yet as she chopped bell peppers and sliced mushrooms, anxiety brewed under the surface. What if Jake found fault in their creation? Would he question each ingredient as he had the night before?
The rhythm of her knife against the cutting board matched the chaos of her racing thoughts. Somewhere within the cacophony, Clara realized that she could not control Jake's reaction or perceptions forever. She needed to assert her role in the transformation and embrace the risk of rejection. When Jake arrived, the familiar twinge of discomfort played at the back of Clara's mind. She tightened her grip on the knife, then turned to greet him, forcing a warm smile. "I've prepped everything for our pizza night. Want to join me?" His brow lifted, masking intrigue with a wisp of skepticism. "You've got a plan?" Absolutely. It was her time to take charge, to step into her vision without hesitation. Let's make this something special. As they began rolling out the dough together, Clara found herself speaking freely, sharing her excitement about the various toppings. What about some artichokes or olives? She attempted to gauge his reactions, prying bits of his interest from under the surface of his nonchalance. Jake hesitated, the little frown on his face implying doubt. "Artichokes? I mean, we're just making pizza, right? Why complicate it?" "Innovating our meals is part of what we've decided to explore together," she replied, her voice steady but vulnerable. "Remember, it's about connecting and trying things we haven't before." The dough paused under their hands, and for a moment Clara sensed hesitation ripple between them. But the flicker of determination, like a candle fighting against the wind, glimmered in her chest. She concluded that their journey wasn't merely about the food. It mirrored a fundamental shift within their relationship. His eyes shifted, and she saw the gears turning as he uncovered layers of rooted comfort. "All right, let's give it a shot," he finally conceded, albeit with a reluctant grin. The shadows flickered away, and Clara's heart swelled with relief at his tentative acceptance. As they assembled their creation together, Clara couldn't resist the urge to infuse humor into the moment. What if artichokes are actually a gateway to alternative pizza realms? She laughed lightly, hoping to encourage him to think outside his comfort zone. Hearing his reluctant chuckle felt like a small victory. Together, they covered the dough in a colorful melange of toppings, and with every slice added, Clara felt the landscape of their family dynamic shift slightly in a new direction. After the pizza baked, the house filled with an inviting aroma, wrapping them both in a warm embrace. As they sat down to enjoy their communal efforts, Clara marveled at how even this small change in routine sparked laughter and a sense of shared adventure. But the journey was far from over. Clara sensed the looming threat of drift returning. They had taken a step forward, but would Jake remain open to the transformations that lay ahead?
With that thought gripping her, Clara took a bite of their creation, half expecting him to question the toppings with every chew. She felt an odd mixture of hope and tension, aware that pushing boundaries too abruptly could still lead to resistance. Their growth together seemed both inevitable and fragile. "Tomorrow," she quietly resolved, "we'll need to explore even deeper. It's not only about the food anymore." The conviction pulsed through her, leaving a lingering question. What were they truly willing to change in their lives, and how deep would they dig into this newfound alignment? Clara awoke the next morning determined. Last night had sparked a hopeful connection with Jake, but she knew there was more groundwork to lay. Staring out the kitchen window, she reflected on what their culinary journey could unveil, not just for their meals, but for their relationship. It was critical now to push boundaries further, both in what they cooked and in how they communicated. As the day unfolded, Clara began brainstorming. She grabbed her notebook, the cover slightly scuffed from previous inspirations, and jotted down not just food ideas, but themes for their cooking nights. The notion of cultural nights came to her, a series of meals reflecting different countries and traditions.
This would be both an adventure for their taste buds and a means to share stories and memories. Could learning about different cultures perhaps illuminate parts of their own identity? She felt a tingle of excitement at this thought. Her challenge, however, was introducing the concept to Jake. Would he join her enthusiasm, or would his skepticism surface again? Thus, she decided to plan their next meal meticulously, demonstrating the magic behind her vision. Tonight was the Italian night. The ideas were bubbling like a hearty marinara sauce. Clara visited the local market, hand-picking ingredients for fresh pasta to create from scratch. The bright reds of tomatoes, the deep greens of basil, and the earthy tones of mushrooms filled her basket. She envisioned captivating conversations over homemade fettuccine, a dish that could lead them deeper into discussion about family traditions and perhaps their own aspirations. As she prepared at home, the kitchen became her sanctuary. Kneading and rolling out the dough focused her mind, allowing space for reflection on her fears. Each roll of the rolling pin dulled the whisper of uncertainty nagging at her. Would Jake's innate caution block the intimate connection she sought to create? She refused to see it as a failure, but rather as part of a growth cycle, one where she had to confront situations directly, even if it meant navigating discomfort. When Jake returned, she greeted him with a bright smile that she hoped would stave off any impending skepticism. "Tonight is Italian night. I'm making fresh fettuccine and I want to involve you in every step," she announced, her voice firm yet inviting.
His brow furrowed slightly, but curiosity gleamed in his eyes. Fresh fettuccine? That sounds ambitious. How do you even begin? It starts with flour and eggs. Let's dive right in. Clara's confidence surged, igniting an urgency inside her to prove this could reshape more than just their meals. As they worked together, Clara was conscious of every interaction. When Jake hesitated to join her in mixing the flour and eggs, she encouraged him, sharing stories of how Nonna used to make pasta back in Italy. Little anecdotes filled the air, drawing them closer, yet she could feel the moment slipping if he remained detached. "Do you ever think about where our food comes from?" she asked, searching his eyes for any shifting perspectives. His hands paused momentarily, covered in flour. "Not really," he admitted. "I guess I never thought it mattered. It's just food to me." Silence hung between them, creating a weight Clara could sense. Here lay the crux of the matter. Jake's approach to meals wasn't merely about taste. It reflected a mindset entrenched in routines and safety that sometimes brushed aside exploration. "I think it matters a lot," Clara replied, fortifying her convictions. "Food tells stories about who we are, what we value, what brings us together. If we keep ignoring those stories, how can we expect to grow?" The question lingered in the air, thick with untempered emotion. Mulling her words over, Jake looked at the dough, then back at her. There was a flicker of contemplation, a realization possibly dawning. "Maybe we could explore more than just food," he suggested tentatively, looking up. "Could we tackle some of our life stories too?" Clara's heart thrummed in her chest. He had opened a door she thought might remain shut. "Yes! Exploring food is just the beginning!" Underneath the surface, both of them began to sense a growing connection. A new method of communication was brushing against the familiar. Clara's determination seemed to spark something in Jake. Tides were turning. As they finished rolling the dough together, a mutual understanding hung between them. If they could create together in the kitchen, they could perhaps also create a shared narrative in their lives. But even with her excitement soaring, Clara couldn't shake the tension of that delicate balance. Had she truly unlocked a new avenue for their relationship, or was this just a fleeting moment in time? Deep in thought, she reflected, pushing past the fear was just one layer of their journey. Would they continue the exploration beyond the plate? Tonight stirred yet another question. What would their next culinary adventure unveil about who they really were? Clara's resolve thickened. Tomorrow they would take another leap, prying open more of the stories that shaped them both. The morning sun filtered Clara's kitchen window, casting a warm glow on her countertop cluttered with notes and recipe ideas.
She felt the momentum from the previous night, invigorated by the fragile openness Jake had shown, but uncertainty still lingered. Their tentative connection teetered between exploration and retreat, and she was determined to nurture that spark before it fizzled out. Today, Clara's theme crystallized: Spanish tapas night. It had popped into her mind as she flipped through her culinary notebook, remembering her trip to Barcelona. The vibrant dishes served in casual settings not only showcased diverse flavors, but also encouraged sharing and conversation, just the kind of environment she needed to further deepen their bond. Yet, alongside her excitement, resided a creeping apprehension. What if Jake dismissed this too? She made her way to the market again, the bustling space one of her favorite haunts. The kaleidoscope of colors instinctively settled her, and she immersed herself in the task of selecting ingredients. Chorizo caught her eye, its rich red hue embodying the warmth of the Spanish sun. Olive oil, bell peppers, garlic, it all should be here, she whispered to herself, the rhythm of her shopping list steadying her nerves. Back in the kitchen, Clara methodically prepared for the evening.
She sautéed garlic, feeling its fragrant warmth envelop her. Above all else, she wanted Jake to feel not just engaged, but compelled to share his thoughts, an invitation to step into her world. Mirroring her actions from the previous night, Clara made sure to communicate. "Did you know that in Spain, sharing meals is about connection? Each dish tells a story," she opened as Jake arrived. He greeted her with an unsure smile, but nodded. The energy shifted around them. "What's on the agenda tonight?" He moved past the initial awkwardness, curiosity peeking through. "Spanish tapas. I want you to help me with everything, chopping, mixing, even the arranging." Clara's voice amplified her enthusiasm, but beneath it, she felt a tinge of vulnerability. This was her chance to pull him closer while revealing who she was beyond the kitchen. As they began chopping ingredients together, she quickly realized Jake's hands moved mechanically, as if his participation were a chore rather than a shared adventure. She struggled with the urge to push him harder, but she knew growth required patience. "When I traveled, I learned how important these meals were for bringing people together. It's less about food and more about connection," Clara explained, seeking the angles that could resonate with his mind. "I just see it differently. To me it's fuel, simple as that," he said, his words landing heavily. It was a dismissal cloaked in practicality, and for a moment, Clara felt the weight of sheer frustration. "Fuel? Fuel connects us to our heritage, Jake. What does your heritage mean to you?" The question hung there, heavy and deliberate. Jake hesitated, face clouding over, wrestling with a thought he hadn't apparent until now.
After a moment, he responded quietly, "I suppose it's just there, not something I like to dig into." Was this a moment that could shift their dynamic? She watched him closely, sensing a whirlwind of thoughts churning underneath his stoic demeanor. "But I want to know about it. My family traditions influence what I cook, how we gather. What do you have to share?" Each attempt Clara made to reach him felt like rowing against the tide. Then something shifted in Jake's eyes, a flicker of interest, a dawning curiosity sparked by her words. For the first time, he put down the knife and looked directly at her. "Okay, fine. My grandmother used to make this stew every Sunday. I remember the smell filling the house. It was comforting, but it's just a single dish," he shrugged, his tone betraying an underlying softness. "That's it," Clara breathed out, realizing they were on the verge of something transformative. The kitchen, filled with the aromas of garlic and spices, became a crucible for their unfolding connection. As they plated the tapas, laughter began to punctuate their earlier tension. Sharing stories about their culinary memories and dreams led to revelations about their personal aspirations, subtly revealing parts of each other they had hidden. Clara felt her heart swell as she discovered more than just culinary likes. They were navigating vulnerability. But as the evening progressed, her excitement, countered by lingering doubts, crept back. Would Jake retreat into indifference as easily as he had before? Clara knew they were on the verge of a potential breakthrough, but still unease gnawed at her. What if the walls he built around himself were too sturdy to break down? With every bite they shared, Clara sensed shifting dynamics, new layers peeling back. Tonight hadn't just been about food. It had etched an enthralling narrative in their relationship. However, she couldn't ignore that their journey had only just begun. What revelations lay ahead once they reached those layers of fear? Clara clenched her hands around her glass, inhaling the warmth of the moment, but she felt the uncertainty lurking. What would they truly discover when the stories dug deeper? Would they awaken and find the courage to confront the walls that stood between them? Clara awoke the next morning to the familiar scent of spices still lingering in the air, a residual warmth wrapped around her like a tangible memory of the night before. The laughter, the camaraderie, and the brief glimpse of vulnerability from Jake haunted her thoughts as she prepared for the day. Each sound from the bustling street outside felt amplified. Life continued around her, while her internal dialogue spiraled. Was that shift a fluke, some fleeting moment of connection, or had they truly turned a corner? This nagging uncertainty refused to let her rest, and acknowledging it was a weight she carried through her morning routine.
The kitchen, once a sanctuary of creativity, now felt heavy with expectations. She wondered if she could keep this energy alive, this thirst for connection that had flickered and sparked between them. But promises made in the glow of candlelight could dim quickly in the harsh light of day. As she moved through her tasks, Clara found herself flipping through her culinary notebook again, but now she approached her notes with a critical eye. With Jake's newfound openness in mind, she sought to curate an experience that might expose more of his layers. A casual brunch might allow room for less pressure, more conversation. In the midst of concocting ideas, she scribbled brunch nibbles at the top of a blank page, surrounded by fragments of thoughts about what to include. Avocado toast? Fresh fruit? Something sweet to balance the savory? Each recipe represented not just a dish, but a chance to draw Jake in further, to peel back the layers that guarded his heart. There was an urgency building within her. She felt the pull towards deeper understanding, both of herself and him. Once she finished her brainstorming, Clara ventured to the same market, feeling the vibrant pulse of the city around her. The world felt different today, tinged with hope, but also trepidation. She reached for papayas, their golden skins smooth beneath her fingers, and pauses as she thought about Jake's grandmother's stew. Suddenly she realized that her culinary world could be the doorway to connect his defiantly guarded personal history. Images of rich broths, bubbling pots, and spicy aromas filled her mind. Gazing,
Their dinner, while only a continuation of the previous night, felt weightier now, embedded with new potential for revelations. As she plated the unique dishes, like an artist finalizing a masterpiece, she breathed deeply, hoping that the recipes would unlock more than just taste. Would Jake recognize her efforts and open up further about his grandmother and the stew that comforted him? Could they together navigate the complexities of each other's history and fears, discovering the richness hidden behind their carefully constructed facades? Clara's heart raced at the thought, each second stretching into eternity as she awaited Jake's arrival, clinging to the possibility of bridging invisible gaps between them. The moment felt electric, both thrilling and terrifying, but she was ready. Now all she needed was a spark to ignite the fire. What stories would emerge from their culinary creation, and could they finally face the uncertainties that loomed over them? That question hovered tantalizingly, waiting for clarity, just beyond the edge of revelation. That evening, Clara set the table with immense care, intent on crafting an inviting atmosphere that transcended mere food. She laid out colorful plates and sparkling cutlery, each item purposeful, designed to engage not just the appetite but the senses. The centerpiece was vibrant, a cornucopia of ingredients that mirrored layers of flavor and history she hoped to unveil. On the stovetop, the aroma of the fried plantains mingled with the simmering broth, an ode to Jake's grandmother's stew, a dish he shared with reluctance but had awakened something in both of them. Clara felt a knot of expectation and eagerness, her heart racing as the door creaked open, announcing Jake's arrival. "Wow, it smells incredible in here," he said, stepping into the warmth of the kitchen. His eyes wandered over the array of dishes, curiosity mixed with apprehension dancing on his features. This reaction ignited a mix of hope and anxiety within Clara. "Tonight's a special night," she declared, trying to maintain a steady voice that belied her fluttering insides. "I thought we'd recreate your grandmother's stew together." Jake paused, a frown flickering momentarily before he settled at the table. "Really? You remembered?" "Of course. I want to celebrate the stories behind our meals," she replied, her heart pounding with confidence. "Why don't we get started?" As they moved into the cooking phase, Clara took the lead, gently guiding him through each step with an openness that sought to invite him into her heart. She could feel the tension in the air. Every chop of the knife echoed the cautiousness he still held onto. "Tell me about your grandmother," she prompted, stirring the pot and watching the steam swirl upward, like the memories that clung to both of them. For a moment, Jake hesitated, his hands hovering above the cutting board. "She was strong, a hard worker."
she'd tell us stories while cooking, watching us closely to ensure we were absorbing everything. "But," he faltered, "I never thought those stories mattered much." Clara paused, capturing his gaze, the moment suspended in silence. What if they do? What if sharing them can connect us to her, to each other? The room filled with an air of possibility, opaque but palpable. Jake's expression shifted, his defenses softening. "Maybe you're right." As they layered in the ingredients for the stew, Clara urged him to keep talking. Did she have a special way of preparing it? With each deliberate step, she felt Jake opening up, vulnerability creeping in around the corners. Well, she always believed in using fresh herbs. A little of this, a pinch of that. It was an art for her. He smiled wistfully, a gentle reminiscence steering him away from customary walls. "Let's add our own twist then," Clara said, fostering the sense of collaboration. "How about some spice, something that feels right to you?" Jake nodded slowly, and together they poured in a sprinkle of chili flakes, eyes alight with anticipation as the blend of flavors heightened. Clara felt a spark of joy ripple through her. They were no longer just mixing ingredients, but weaving their stories into a tapestry embroidered with flavors.
The stew bubbled with an inviting essence, a wholesome foundation for connection. Clara served them both, the hearty broth glowing against the backdrop of mismatched plates, each part of it narrating a story, each bite echoing a journey that brought them here. As they sat down together, Clara felt the weight of the past lifting. She watched Jake as he tasted their shared creation, his brow furrowing in thought, before a grin broke across his face. "This is better than I remember." An electric thrill coursed through her. "Really?" she asked, holding her breath for an unguarded moment. "Yeah, I can taste her in it," he admitted, and the depth of his admission struck a chord. The stew was more than a dish. It became a bridge between past and present, a tribute, a conversation that transcended their kitchen into the vast narrative of their lives. Encouraged by his response, Clara could feel the gradual easing of tension as they delved deeper into recollections. Stories of his grandmother intertwined with her own of family traditions and the warmth that a good meal brings. In those moments, Clara recognized a significant shift within her. She had stepped into the role of an advocate for change, not just in their meals, but in their lives, a mission of connection that had served as a slow awakening. As the night progressed, the walls they had built appeared to fall, prompting laughter and shared smiles that fueled a newfound intimacy. Jake's skepticism faded like mist beneath a brisk morning sun, replaced by a willingness to explore together. But their journey illuminated a larger truth. Change would not come easily.
There would still be reluctance, misunderstandings to conquer, and stories left untold. Nonetheless, this night marked a notable milestone, the tender yet undeniable germination of trust. Clara leaned into the hope coursing through her. Tomorrow, she resolved, they would plan the next step together, delving into more than just cooking, a deeper sharing of their lives and aspirations. Her heart raced at the possibilities, but a sense of calm washed over her. They had taken that crucial step forward. They would keep peeling back those layers, unearthing their own rich tapestry of individual histories, woven together through the simple yet profound act of cooking and sharing a meal. Clara smiled at Jake, a genuine warmth sparking between them. "Thank you for cooking this with me," she said softly. He nodded, an acknowledgement that mirrored her sentiment deeply. Perhaps together, they would not only redefine their meals, but reshape their connection, nurturing a bond that, like the stew simmering gently before them, would only grow richer over time. Emboldened by new purpose, Clara recognized this wasn't just about health or recipes. It was about an alliance. In a world where culinary boundaries blurred, their hearts began to intertwine seamlessly. What they discovered in one another's stories and the meals they shared might just pave the way toward a vibrant legacy filled with richness, flavor, and love. Now was the time to subscribe to that path of change, where each meal represented not only sustenance, but the enduring journey of their lives intertwined. No longer just a collection of culinary recipes, but the foundation for a flourishing future, grounded in shared passions and stories yet to unfold. The world stretched out before Clara, replete with potential. This was her moment, for growth, realization, and shared discovery. They had taken steps, and for every dish they created, they would explore deeper, embracing the unknowns that remained. As Clara set her sights on the next meal, anticipation pulsed through her, now emboldened with clarity and warmth. They were on a path towards self-discovery and profound connection, a journey where the flavors of life reflected the complexity of their own narratives, waiting to be told. So embrace this delicious adventure together. Taste, share, and explore what's next. Connect over meals, memories, and moments. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to embark on this flavorful journey with us.